everyone. I am super excited to bring you this process of mine where I work on a page in this particular really junk journal that I made in 2015. I made it out of a pizza box, a DiGiorno pizza box, and to cover it, I put a drop paper, which means that it was paper that I used to paint and do different projects on. And I put it together and I used that ribbon there to hold the papers in the inside of it. I used different kinds of papers. I used drop paper on the inside. I used, I'm going to show you here in a second, like the Stampin' Up! Grid paper. I have some of that in here. Just a few different kinds of papers I have in here. I'm showing you there another drop paper. I don't use drop paper anymore because, I don't know, well now I use the Tim Holtz matte. So, I just don't do that anymore. But I do have some, that I've kept over the years. So if I ever need it, I do have it. I am going to work on this page right here. So again, this junk journal I made out of the pizza box in 2015. I did gesso with clear gesso the top of this page, and it's actually kind of hard, even though the paper originally is not hard, but because of me working on the other side of it as well as putting the clear gesso on, it's nice and sturdy. So I'm using some gouache paint, and I'm spraying some water on it because I don't want it thick, and I put a little bit of red and some white on it, and of course you know what color I am going for here. I'm going for the different shades of pink. I am not bringing the color all the way to the end of the page, and see right there, I like that. I don't want to make this perfect by any means. I like the areas of it that they're not perfect, and that to me is what makes it really work. I was thinking about doing a collage like that, but you'll see eventually what I did decide to do on this page. I did go ahead and I dried that off with my heat tool. And now what I want to do is I want to take a little bit of this yellow gouache. And gouache is just another kind of paint. It's like acrylic paint. It's a little bit more opaque, which means it's not as transparent as acrylic paint can be. And very lightly am I going over the top of this with the yellow. Very, very, very lightly. What I'm trying to do here is get the paint on the areas of the page that sticks up, right? So it's a very rough page, so to speak. And I just want to get the areas that really are raised up, and just to give it a special look, Again, I don't like to work and have things be super neat and clean and perfect. I definitely like a bit of a more shabby chic kind of look for the different pages that I work on. Now I am actually going to put down some flowers that I cut out of, well, that white right there is just from a piece of packaging, and I cut that flower wrong, the white one, and I turned it over. I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks like a butterfly, that white up on top. So I'm like, I'm going to use that as a butterfly. But the middle one is a piece of pattern paper, scrapbook paper. But it's very thin paper. It's hard to cut these flowers when you have the heavier scrapbook paper. I'm sorry that this is shaking. I did not realize that it was shaking. The whole video will not shake. So I apologize about that. I actually ordered another tripod in just yesterday, and so hopefully that doesn't happen anymore. Sorry, I didn't realize it was doing that. But so you can use scrapbook paper, you can use deli paper, you can use really anything that you want to make these flowers. And again, the all of that white is actually packaging from something that came in the mail the other day. So I'm getting all of the pieces of the paper down with the Liquitex matte medium. And I'm just going to give it a quick dry right there. And now, since I'm, like those three, right, they're obviously flowers. And I decided to use this Prima stencil because I'm actually going to put the stems on using this stencil. And the stencil is actually, it's kind of like a heavy cardboard. It is not plastic. It's interesting. I love them. I have a whole set of them. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of blue and yellow paint to come up with a nice color for the stems. And again, I'm using that gouache. And I got the gouache in the palette full pack, the kit that I opened yesterday. And now I have the Art Basics light paste, and I'm just going to go ahead and mix that all in there. I want my stems to have some dimension to them. I could just paint the stems on, easy peasy, but I really wanted to do a little bit with the light modeling paste. And so I just mixed in the color right there. And now I'm using this stencil. And so that bigger flower with the pattern paper, I am going to use the arrows that go down. And I have to be really careful. It turned out to take a little bit more time doing this because I didn't want to get the modeling paste or the paint elsewhere on the page, so like right there I had to wipe a little bit off. But once I really realized I needed to be super careful, then I was, it worked out a little bit better after that. So I'm just showing you the different, designs, the different shapes on this particular stencil. But for this little flower over here to the left, I'm just going to do the straight line. Well, and you would think that would be super easy peasy, right? Well, let me tell you, because it was so narrow, it really took extra time for me to be careful to get it only in that area of the stencil. And now over here for the flower on the right, I'm going to use the zigzag or chevron, whatever you would like to call it, that part of this stencil. And again, I have to be very careful. And what I'm using to get it on there, it's actually an Art Basics silicone, it's like a spatula. And it's great to use, and that's what I used to get the modeling paste out of the jar. So I used it for that as well. But it's a great little tool. It's very functional. So that's what I'm doing here. And I love the way that all of that looks. I love it. So I went and I cleaned off that stencil. All you can do is wipe it off, right? It's paper. You can't wash it. And I wanted to show you that the leftover green paste, I went ahead and I put on this tag. This tag is like my wipe off tag, and I had some paint on it. And you know what? We're going to go to video number 2.